So you've recently bought a school bus and you're super excited about living the bus life. But the issue is that you need to take your bus from a traditional school bus to a fully converted school bus. And the first step in every bus conversion is going to be gutting the school bus. Now, if you're anything like me, when I did my first bus conversion, I had no clue how buses were manufactured and put together, which also meant I had no clue how to take it apart. Well, in this video, I want to give you the best tips and tricks on how you can take your bus apart, how you can do it effectively, quickly, and set yourself up for the best conversion. What's up, guys? My name's Michael and welcome to Navigation Nowhere, where you're going to get the best tips and tricks on how to live on the road and live the bus life, and how you're going to learn how to go from point A to point B and have the most fun doing it. Let's get into it. You're driving your school bus home or to your build location. You get all of your tools together and you walk inside the bus and you see all the rivets, bolts, screws, or anything else that is holding this bus together. The problem is you need to get all of this stuff out. Now, in this video, I'm going to give you the steps of how to do a full gut job. Now, that means we're gonna pull out the windows, we're gonna pull out the side panels, we're gonna pull out the flooring, the roof vents, the front lights. We're going to rip this thing down all the way to nothing, or what I like to say, the exterior sheet metal. Now, the reason why it is so important for you to rip your bus down to the exterior sheet metal is because there's a lot of issues behind the walls that you're not gonna know about unless you do this. Because most buses that you're probably buying are gonna have 150 to 200,000 miles on it. They're probably gonna be 10 to 20 years old, and they're gonna have a lot of road wear. Which means, honestly, if you're gonna put a lot of money into a conversion, you're gonna wanna know that you're starting with a good foundation. So gutting the school bus all the way down to the exterior sheet metal is gonna give you the assurance that you can fix the problems that are there and start off with the best bus possible to set you up for the best conversion. For instance, behind all of your walls, there's going to be insulation. Now, it's not going to be the best insulation out there, and it's not going to give you the greatest R value. But it is going to be something you're probably going to rip out and replace if you're looking to live full-time in your bus. The second thing is going to be below the flooring. You're probably going to look at your bus and see a nice rubber flooring. But the problem is that below that rubber flooring there is a piece of plywood. And that piece of plywood has been there probably from 10 to 20 years depending on the bus you've got. And that plywood probably has a bit of water damage, or at least is probably not that solid after that amount of time. So I highly suggest you rip it out, and that would definitely be the preference and what I would do in all of my bus conversions. The first thing that you're gonna wanna do when you get inside your bus to figure out how you're gonna gut your school bus is to see if your bus is held together with either screws or rivets. Now, this video is going to give you the same process regardless of how your bus is held together, but let me just tell you that if you have rivets, you're gonna have a lot more fun and it's gonna take you a lot more time than someone with screws. My original bus was a rivet bus. The bus that I'm currently in here, well, it's a screw bus, and I gutted the thing in like 2 days. Well, I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at you. So if you're watching this video with screws, congratulations, you bought yourself a much easier bus. If you bought yourself a bus with rivets, well, it's gonna take you a bit longer. The reason is because screws are gonna be able to be backed out with an impact driver or with some WD-40 or rust breaker, and typically you won't have to grind too much. Well, if you have rivets, you're gonna be drilling out those rivets, you're gonna be popping those rivets out, you're gonna be using air chisels or grinders, and well, it's just gonna take you a lot more time. So that may be something to consider when you're buying your school bus if you haven't bought one yet, but if you have already bought one, these steps still apply. Don't worry, you rivet people out there, you're gonna have a bit more fun. Both can be done, but there's a big difference between them. Now, when you start gutting your school bus, the first thing that you're gonna wanna start gutting is going to be your upper side panels above the window. The reason why I typically start here is because those side panels are also holding in the roof. Once you get that side panel out, you'll then be able to take the ceiling out and the whole upper portion of the bus will come apart. Now, when you are pulling out the side panels, let me just warn you that you will usually find speakers or lights. Those wires you're gonna wanna disconnect, but do label them, because once you rip that thing out and you move on to the next project, you are most likely never going to remember what that wire originally went to, and you're gonna have a dead end wire, you're gonna have a short possibly somewhere, so you really wanna label them so when you go back and start working on the electrical, you can figure out which wire was which. Now, once you rip out the ceiling, you can then get to the emergency exits, which I highly suggest you rip out or replace, or at least rip out and then put back in and re-caulk, just to make sure that it is 100% sealed so you will have no water issues in the future. Once the roof is done, you can move to the side panels below the windows. These side panels, a lot of times people leave, but once again, I highly suggest you rip out. The windowsills are going to be spot welded just behind the window guard, so you're gonna have to grind it just below the window or remove the windows and grind the whole windowsill. This may sound really confusing, but when you get to it, trust me, you'll see what I'm talking about, and it's not gonna be as hard as you think. Now once the side panels are out, you can move on to the flooring, which is going to be probably one of the hardest parts of your entire gutting process. The reason is because you have seats, you have flooring, you have the rubber, you typically have screws going through the plywood, and all of this is going to have to come out to remove that flooring. The first spot you're going to want to start with the flooring is going to be taking out and removing the seats. They're going to be held in by bolts. Then you're going to want to move on to ripping the rubber out, where you're going to find screws. Now these screws are going to be placed in all different locations around the edges, and you're going to want to try to get all of them out. Once you get the screws out, the plywood should come up very easily. The only problem is that it's going to be very wet and you're going to have holes in your floor, which you're going to have to address later. The last thing that I highly suggest you do is going to be rip out all of the windows. Now, these windows are not going to be the easiest to rip out because they're held in by caulk that has probably been there for 10 to 15 years, but with a good razor blade or a Dremel, you can get them out quite easily. Once you rip the windows out, you can reuse them, which is what I'm going to do in this school bus, or you can replace it with RV windows if you're going to sheet metal the sides, but you're going to want to rip them out and re-caulk them because the caulk is only going to be rated for so many years, and if you're planning on using this bus for the next 5-10 years, well, by that 5-10 years from now, that bus is then going to be 20-something years old probably, which means that caulk is not going to be as good as the day it was manufactured. So re-caulking the windows now is going to be a simple way to ensure that your bus is not going to have many leaks and that it's going to last into the future. So I hope that these tips were very helpful to you and that you were able to learn how to gut your school bus in an effective way and the reasons why I highly encourage you to do a full gut. Waterproofing and starting from a good foundation. Now, if you liked this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, let them know if they're going to a school bus that these are the steps that they're going to want to follow. If you're currently converting or have converted a school bus and have any tips for anyone, leave them in the comments below for those who are watching to see. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.